So far we understood small agents is one of the code-based agentic framework and it is developed by Hugging Face. So small agents offer different agent types and it also has built-in tool support. So first let's learn about code agents as well as tool calling agents, and we will also understand the difference between code agents and tool calling agents. So when agents take actions and use tools, they can use the tools in two different ways. One is the code agents, the other one is the tool calling agents. So first let's theoretically see the difference between these two types, code agents versus tool calling agents. So this is the quick comparison. So let's say we have an agent which is trying to perform an action. In the first case, the agent uses text or JSON as an action, and in the second case, the agent is using code to perform that action. Okay, so the first one is tool calling agent and this is nothing but code agent. So for example, if you see the agent instruction or the agent's task is to determine the most cost-effective country to purchase the smartphone model, Code Act 1, the countries to consider are the USA, Japan, Germany and India. So this is what we want our agent to do. So now let's see how the agent will perform by using tool calling agents versus code agent. That is, to perform this action, we need to provide the required tools to the agent. Okay, so these are the tools. So the first one is lookup rates. This is to look up the rates of the phone in a given country. So first it will look up the rates in each country and then it will convert tax and then estimate the final price after the price conversion. And also it will look up the phone price by model. Okay, and then it will estimate the shipping cost. So we provided access to all these APIs. These are nothing but tools to our agent in order to perform this action. And one other thing is the underlying framework between these two types, that is either tool calling agent or code agent. The underlying framework is thought, action and observation. Okay, so which remains the same for both these frameworks. So you can see the thought, right? The agent is thinking this way: I should calculate the phone price in USD for each country, then find the most cost effective country, right? And the action is, it is using these APIs, look underscore rates, right? And it is passing the country as Germany, and this is the response. And also if you see here, the agent is thinking this way: I should calculate the phone price in USD for each country, then find the most cost effective country. And if you see the action, this is in the code format, and here you can see it is in the JSON format. So that is the difference between tool calling agent and code agent. So you can see the action. The first one is text or JSON and the second one is the code. So JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation, and it is a lightweight human readable text format for data interchange. And JSON is used to store and transmit data between a server and a web application, right? So this is nothing but a name value pair. So you can see the tool is lookup rates and the country is Germany. So this is name, this is value, name, value, right? So this is easy to understand, right? So in the first case, agent receives the action as JSON format. Okay, so here tool is passed as text. And in the second case, that is code agent, agent receives the action as code. So if you see here, the tool is passed as code, right? So the agent calculates phone price for each country individually and then compares and determines the best phone. So the tool is passed as text or JSON in the first case, and in the second case the tool is passed as code for an agent to perform an action. Okay, and here we only have USA, Japan, Germany and India. We only have 4 countries. So what if we have multiple countries? For example, let's say if we have 50 countries to compare, then you need to write 50 actions, right? In case of tool calling agent, and in that case text or JSON action becomes hectic, right? Because you need to specify this action for 50 countries. So you have to write this 50 times in case of tool calling agents. So you need to write multiple actions, right? That is 50 actions. So you need to write 50 times. Whereas if you use code agent, you can just loop through this, right? So you don't have to write 50 times. Just write a for loop, and for 50 countries it will loop through and then it will perform the action. So that means code can be reused in case of code agent. So we have more flexibility with coding agents, so we have built-in Python packages, right? So you can specify which Python package to use, right? So with the coding agents, we will have more control. And what did we learn before? Small agents provided by Hugging Face is a code-based framework. So that means whenever an agent needs to perform an action behind the scenes, it will be converted into code. So the code itself will be generated by the LLM. That is, whenever the LLM need to perform an action, it will convert that action into code and then it will perform the action. Okay. So we have coding agent as well as tool calling agent. So the important feature of small agents is that it will let the AI agent call the tools by writing code, not just by filling out a JSON schema. If you take the traditional agentic frameworks, they usually tend to have the model output the response as JSON format, right? Whereas the small agents take a different route. It will ask the model to produce a snippet of Python code, and it will also call the tools if required, right? So these are all the different tools that we provided to our agent to perform this action, right? So why is this coding approach helpful? Because writing actions as code has some big advantages. The first one is more flexibility. So the agent can use the full flexibility of Python for logic, right? So it can loop through, or it can do the conditional logic, that is branching, or it can combine multiple tool calls into one. For example, the agent could write a loop to perform several web searches and filter the results, right? Which is more convenient than using JSON calls, right? And the next one is fewer steps, because the agent can do more in one action. That is, it often needs fewer iteration cycles to solve a problem. And in fact, early benchmarks showed that the code agents can use 30% fewer reasoning steps than the tool calling agents to achieve better results. Okay. And the next advantage of code agents is human like thought process, right? So when the AI writes the code, it's almost like seeing its thought process in an execution form, right? So it can be easier to trace what the agent is trying to do. So you will be able to easily debug or understand the agent's thought process or reasoning. Okay. And the next one is JSON option remains, right? So of course the small agent still supports the classic JSON style tool calls via the tool calling agent. So use tool calling agents for simple or more constrained tasks, but the default agent is code agent. Okay, so for simple tasks go for tool calling agents, and for complex tasks you can use code agents. And the code first approach does introduce new considerations as well. That is, executing arbitrary code means you have to think about safety, right? Because the code is generated by the LLM, so you have to be thinking about the safety option as well. So with this background on code agents and tool calling agents, let's try building these agents in the next lecture, so we understand these concepts much better when we see them in action. All right. Thank you.